was no pearly gate. The only reason I knew I was in a cave was because I had just passed the entrance. The rock wall rose behind me with no ceiling in sight. Stars glittered faintly through the gaping maw, a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness that swallowed me whole. This was it. This was what religion talked about, what man feared since the dawn of time. I had just entered the gate to hell. The air hung heavy and stagnant. I felt the presence of the cave as if it was a living, breathing creature. The stench of rotten flesh, so potent it made my eyes water, overwhelmed me. It wasn't a singular source, but a pervasive miasma that seemed to seep from the very rock itself. My stomach lurched, but there was nothing to purge. Then there was the voice. It came from inside and all around, echoing off the cavern walls, making it impossible to pinpoint a source. It was a deep, gravelly groan, laced with an ancient power that sent chills down my spine. "Welcome!" it boomed. Terror turned my legs to lead. My bravado, the cocky atheism I'd clung to for so long, evaporated like a snowflake in a summer sun. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a croak. I tried to keep my composure, but the tremor in my voice betrayed my fear. "You know," the thing answered. Did I know? In the stark clarity of death, the doubts I'd buried deep within me resurfaced. Maybe there was something beyond this life, something darker, more sinister than the sweet promises of heaven. "You are the devil," I stuttered, quickly losing my composure. "Why me? I've lived as good a life as I could in this frozen wasteland." Silence took over the space as my words died out. It seemed like an hour went by before the response came. It was like a boulder rolling through the cavern, slow and deliberate. "What did you expect?" The voice was penetrating but patient, as though explaining a simple concept to a child. "I don't know. I never believed any of this," I uttered. "Is that why I'm here?" Silence. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drum solo in the vast emptiness. I broke the silence, desperate for any explanation. "They say the greatest trick you ever pulled was convincing the world you don't exist." Another pause, pregnant with anticipation. Then a low chuckle, like dry leaves rustling in a cold wind, filled the cave. The sound sent shivers down my spine. "No, the greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing the world that there is an alternative." My breath hitched. "There is no God?" I whispered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The cave trembled with the words, a deep groan that seemed to shake the very foundations of the earth. "I am God." The revelation crashed over me like a tidal wave. The being I'd spent my entire life denying, the entity I'd mocked with my scientific theories, stood before me, or rather, all around me. But if this was God, then what kind of God was it? This wasn't the benevolent creator I'd read about in dusty Bibles. This was something older, darker, a primal force that thrived on suffering. Panic clawed at my throat. I spun around, searching frantically for an escape, for any sign of a way out. But the tunnel entrance, the way back to the world of the living, was gone. In its place, the rock wall stretched on endlessly, a mockery of hope. "Do you understand now, John?" the voice echoed. It wasn't a question, but a statement, a cruel proclamation of my fate. John. The informality of it sent another jolt of terror through me. It wasn't the devil, not a monster from some nightmare. This was a being so powerful, it didn't need theatrics. Tears pricked my eyes. It was a futile gesture, I knew, but I couldn't stop them from spilling over. My atheism, the crutch I'd leaned on for so long, offered no comfort now. "What do you want with me?" I rasped, my voice barely above a whisper. The cave remained silent, the only answer the stench and the oppressive weight of an unseen entity. The silence stretched on, each passing moment an eternity. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, a new sound filled the cavern. It was a rhythmic dripping, like water torture, slowly building in intensity. The single drop splashed onto the cold stone floor, the sound magnified in the oppressive silence. It was followed by another, then another, each echoing with a chilling finality. I watched in morbid fascination as a dark stain spread across the rock, the water an unnatural black, shimmering with an oily sheen. Panic clawed at my throat again. My mind raced, searching for a meaning behind the dripping. Was it a form of torture? A prelude to something even worse? The answer came sooner than I'd like. As the dripping intensified, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the cavern. It was humanoid in shape, but grotesquely distorted. Its skin, if you could call it that, was a sickly gray, stretched taut over protruding bones. Its eyes were two burning red coals set deep in its skull, devoid of any iris or pupil. The stench hit me anew, a wave of putrefaction so potent it made me gag. This creature, whatever it was, reeked of death and decay, an embodiment of everything horrific in the natural world. It moved with a jerky gait, its claws scraping against the rock floor with a sickening screech. As it drew closer, I saw its mouth, a gaping maw filled with rows of jagged teeth dripping with the same inky liquid. A low growl emanated from its throat, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. This was the devil's welcome party, his personal gesture to usher me into the bowels of his domain. This, the voice boomed, filling the cavern once more, is just the beginning, John. The creature lunged, its claws outstretched. Instinct took over and I threw myself to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp. I scrambled to my feet, my heart hammering against my ribs. But there was nowhere to run. The cave walls pressed in on me, offering no escape. The creature screeched again, its fury evident. It charged at me once more, faster this time. But desperation fueled my movements. I dodged again, this time rolling away just as its claws raked the spot where I had been standing moments before. I scrambled up, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I needed a weapon, anything to defend myself. My gaze darted around the cavern, landing on a sharp rock protruding from the wall. It wouldn't be much against this monstrosity, but it was all I had. As the creature turned, ready for another attack, I lunged forward, grabbing the rock with a desperate grip. It was heavier than I expected, but I managed to raise it above my head just as the creature pounced. With a roar, I brought the rock down on its head. The sound of bone cracking echoed through the cavern, but the creature barely flinched. It roared in pain, but its attack wasn't deterred. It swiped at me with its claws, leaving a deep gash on my arm. Pain flooded through me, hot and searing, but the sight of my own blood seemed to snap something inside me. A cold fury, a defiance against this unending torment, replaced the terror. I wouldn't go down without a fight. The creature lunged again, but this time I was ready. I sidestepped its attack and used the momentum to deliver another blow with the rock. This time I connected with its jaw, sending a spray of black liquid across my face. The creature stumbled back, a guttural growl escaping its throat. But before I could capitalize on my advantage, a new wave of dizziness washed over me. The cut on my arm throbbed and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. My vision swam and I collapsed onto the cold floor, the rock clattering away from my grasp. As the blackness threatened to consume me, I heard the voice one last time. "This is your eternity, John. Welcome to hell." The darkness ebbed and flowed, punctuated by bursts of excruciating pain in my arm. When my vision finally cleared, I found myself back on the cold floor, the air thick with the stench of decay and the ever-present dripping. The creature was gone, but a chilling silence had settled in its place, broken only by the ragged gasps of my own breath. Panic threatened to consume me again, but this time it was laced with a strange acceptance. I was in hell, condemned for an eternity I didn't believe in just moments ago. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. As I lay there, my mind drifted back to my life. It wasn't a life filled with grand gestures or heroic deeds. I was an ordinary man, living an ordinary life in a frozen corner of the world. I'd always scoffed at religion, considering it a crutch for the weak. Yet here I was in a place beyond human comprehension, yearning for the comfort of a simple prayer. A faint sound like metal scraping against stone pricked my ears. I turned my head with a groan, my gaze falling on a new horror. A figure emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and morphing, defying definition. It looked like a grotesque tapestry woven from nightmares, its limbs long and spindly, its features obscured by a swirling mass of darkness. This wasn't the mindless beast I'd faced before. This was something else entirely, something ancient and malevolent. The voice, when it spoke, was a cacophony of whispers, each one a different sound, a different language, all merging into a single chilling chorus. "Welcome," it rasped, the word echoing off the cavern walls, "to the true nature of hell." Fear threatened to paralyze me, but a spark of defiance flickered within. "What do you want?" I rasped, my voice hoarse. "You already know," the voice hissed. "You brought your own hell with you." The figure advanced, and with a sickening realization I understood. Hell wasn't a place of fire and brimstone, not literally. It was a reflection of the darkness within us, the regrets, the fears, the what-ifs that festered in the deepest corners of our souls. And for me, that hell was the knowledge of a life unlived, of opportunities missed, of the comfort of faith I'd so readily dismissed. The figure reached for me, its form shifting to take on a face that mirrored my own, twisted in a grimace of regret. As its touch grazed my cheek, a wave of despair washed over me, an endless loop of what could have been. But then a different memory surfaced. A memory of a young boy huddled by a crackling fire, listening to his grandmother speak of hope, even in the face of darkness. A flicker of defiance, a spark of that childhood faith ignited within me. I may be trapped here, but I wouldn't surrender to the darkness. I wouldn't let it consume me. With a roar, I lunged forward, not at the figure, but at the wall behind it. I slammed my bloody fist against the cold stone, again and again, screaming in defiance. The pain was excruciating, but it was a pain I could control, a pain that anchored me to reality. The figure recoiled, its form flickering with surprise. The voice, no longer a chorus, spoke in a single clear tone. "You fight?" it rasped, a hint of amusement in its tone. "I exist," I shouted back, my voice raw. "And that's enough." The figure remained motionless for a moment, then slowly began to fade, the cavern returning to its oppressive darkness. The dripping continued, a constant reminder of my situation, but the fear had receded, replaced by a grudging acceptance. This was my hell, but it wouldn't break me. I would exist, even in the face of eternity, a testament to the human spirit's ability to find a spark of hope, even in the darkest places. The silence stretched on, broken only by the dripping and the ragged gasps of my own breath. In that silence, I found a strange solace, a peace forged in the fires of despair. The ending was uncertain, but for now that was enough. For in the depths of hell, I had found a flicker of defiant life,